Hi, I'm going to show you how I bake my sourdough bread today. So I begin by taking some wheat and a little bit of rye grains and just grinding them up into flour. And then I mix that with strong baker's flour and add filtered water. And I'm using a technique and proportions by Foolproof Baking, and I'll leave the link to that video in the description box. So right now I'm just hydrating all of the flour. I'm mixing it with water, and I'll let this sit overnight for the ortolese. I'm just making sure all of the flour has been hydrated. As you can see, it's quite a wet dough. I'm just incorporating all the water and flour into each other. It does take a little while. Now I'm feeding my starter the night before using rye flour and filtered water. And I'm just using equal parts of the flour and water. And then I'm just mixing that up. So now in the morning, I'm adding starter to the dough and just incorporating that in. So here I'm just continuing to mix in the starter until it's completely incorporated into the dough. Then I'm using an old shower cap to cover it. Here I'm incorporating salt and just mixing that in. So I keep it in a turned off oven with some hot water and the shower cap on top. So here I'm just doing a pre-shape, taking the dough, emptying it out onto the bench. Grabbing a bench scraper, just making sure I've got all of the dough, I don't want to waste any. And I'm going to be doing a pre-shape, so just allowing the dough to develop a bit more gluten. So I'm always wetting my hands, the bench, and my bench scraper before I touch the dough so that it won't stick. And I just wet my hands and tools with water. And I find this is a lot more efficient than trying to use flour, for this type of dough at least. So I'm just taking in all the corners, stretching them out, and then folding it back over itself, and then I'll put it back into the bowl and let it sit. And after half an hour, I'm going to be laminating the dough, which I'm not sure if it's necessary, but it is pretty fun, and it makes me feel like a professional baker, I guess. So again, I'm just wetting my hands, wetting the bench, and wetting the dough scraper, and then emptying the dough out onto the bench. And I'm actually wearing my pajamas here, don't judge. Again, I'm just making sure I've got every last little scrap of dough. I don't want to waste anything. And now for the lamination. So what I do is I stretch the dough out into a big rectangle, a big thin rectangle, basically as big as I can get it. And I believe that this technique is similar to what people do when making croissants, but I've never actually done that personally. So I'm just stretching it all out. And once the rectangle is nice and big, then I'll grab one side of the dough and I'll fold it into the middle. And then I'll do the same on the other side. And then I'll grab the bottom and fold it up into the middle, and then I'll do the same to the top. And I'm being very gentle with the dough and working quite slowly. And so after around half an hour, now I'm doing a stretch and fold. So I'm just grabbing one edge of the dough, stretching it up, and then folding it back over itself. And I do this to each side of the dough, so 4 times. And then I'll let it sit for another half an hour to an hour, and then I'll repeat. And I do this usually 3 to 4 times. And as you can see, I'm making sure that my hands are nice and wet before I handle the dough. You can see the dough is quite stretchy already. And here's the stretch and fold from another angle. As you can see, I just grab one side of the dough, stretch it up with my hands, and then fold it back over itself. And I do try to be quite gentle when handling the dough. So this is the dough after the proof. Nice and bubbly and jiggly. And now I'm just splitting the dough into 3 pieces, roughly equal, because I did make quite a bit of dough. And so it's enough to make 3 nice sized loaves. Yeah, as you can tell, my technique isn't perfect, but it works. And then with each of these 3 segments, I'm just doing a little pre-shape. So just stretching at the sides, folding it back in over itself. And then I'll take my bench scraper and basically just try to create as much surface tension as I can. And then once these doughs have been pre-shaped, I'll let them sit on the bench for 20 minutes to half an hour, and then I'll come back and shape them. So now I'm sprinkling some rice flour that I ground myself onto a tea towel, and I'll put that tea towel into a bowl, and that will be what I use as a proofing basket because I don't have any. And now I'm doing the proper shape of the dough, so just stretching the sides out, folding it in over itself, and then using the bench scraper to create more surface tension. And then once I feel like it's good enough to go, then I'll pop it into the bowl with the tea towel in it, and I'll let it sit in the fridge overnight. So now in the morning, I preheat the oven and I put in a little circular cake tin and a big pot, and I let those get hot, and then I flip the dough out onto the cake tin as carefully as I can. And then I will take off the bowl and the tea towel, and then I will grab a razor blade and score the dough. And I like to dip the razor blade into a bit of water so that it doesn't stick. And I try to work as quickly as I can with the razor blade, making really sharp jabs. I like to make a little cross into the circular loaves. And then I'm just sprinkling a bit of water on top. So now I will put the loaf into the hot oven, and I will put that pot on top of it as my sort of ad hoc Dutch oven, and I'll just bake it up. And this is the baked dough. Now I'm just cutting it open for you, and I'll show you the crumb. This is always my favourite part. And I know my technique isn't perfect, and my breads may not be perfect, but I'm pretty happy with them, and I mean, they will still taste really good. Thank you so much for watching.